Happy 2024 to everyone. This is the first one we've done, so I just want to say hi and welcome back to a new year. Because it's a new year and a lot of people at the start of a new year, they'll be reflecting on the year that's been, and they'll be thinking about the year ahead. The topic that I have chosen for today's discussion that Kevin and I are going to explore is change. So one of the things in 2023 was that there were dramatic changes in many areas. There was dramatic changes with AI. There were dramatic changes at this really top level of kind of how we live and our values and the way we live and things being revealed to us. Wars, blah, blah, blah. Won't go on. The thing that I want to talk about is then as a lesson from your own heart is how do you work with that within yourself? And for me, it's that concept of the way you process change is always perception. So I don't know, how do you connect with that?
Yeah, it's Happy New Year to everyone. Yes, exactly. The thing that came up for me, Andrew and I did a road trip just after Christmas up into Queensland, and I was coming back from Queensland on my own. And things changed. So that got us thinking. But even before that,
tell them what happened. He got COVID.
I got COVID at a music festival. So what do you do? On New Year's Eve, probably.
Yeah.
But even before that, we were talking, even on the way up before New Year's Day, about how people set these intentions for the 1st of January, and it's not how the life works. Change happens when change happens, and you have to deal with it. And I think that's where we were starting to go with this discussion today.
Yeah.
So we'll explore that a bit further through this episode.
I think let's go back to that our direct experience of the New Year intention setting process. Maybe we even start there. But anyway, the concept I want to, let's come back to it soon, because I think it's very relevant for right now. The topic I want to talk about firstly is this idea that if the only thing you can probably guarantee is change. So everything on our physical plane almost continues to evolve and transform.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the universe has got this contract with itself that the only way for things to evolve is for them to keep changing.
Yep.
And so within us, our own mental state continues to transform. Our own emotional state continues to transform. Our body, unfortunately, continues to transform. Our spirit and our sense of ourselves and our soul continues to develop. And then the way all those things mix together within us continue to change at almost at the same rate as the external environment around us continues to evolve and change.
And not in the timeline that we wanted to do it either. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's the crux of it is then we've got this separate idea from all of that evolving universe.
Yeah.
In this little micro mind we've got of ourselves, of the way things should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how ridiculous does that
sound?
And
we'll project manage our life exactly that way. And the universe keeps reminding us that that's not how it actually works.
But when you say it like that, it just sounds ridiculous.
It does.
That we in our own minds create this perception of how reality should be when we're in this incredible universe that's been evolving for millions of years without us around. And
we're going to dictate it. Yeah. So just going back to the whole New Year thing. So.
Well, I think there's a bridge to that.
There is, absolutely. We took we went up to Queensland over 4 days and camped, and we're having a great time. Weather was particularly hot and wet, but we expected
that was one in summer.
That's one expectation that we actually it did meet. The universe provided that for sure. But then we were talking about these New Year's resolutions. From the 1st, we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
And I had an intention. Andrew was flying back, and I was going to drive back on my own and meet up with a whole bunch of people down from Queensland all the way back to Sydney. And
I think more importantly, I'll add on there that you had your soul deep within you. You had a intention to rest and recoup.
Yeah, so it was a re-energized.
That was what your
So it was on my own reflection time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, engaging with other people along the way, having different conversations with colleagues, with friends, all sorts of people I haven't seen for a long time. Go for a swim, all that sort of stuff. So that was my intention, and that got blown out the window, by the universe. And it was an interesting week because driving 1,000 kilometers with COVID isn't much fun, but it was okay. I did it, and it wasn't the end of the world.
So let's work with that now then. So how do you feel about the universe doing that to you? Because it did it to you, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a topic. What I'm about to say is a topic for another day. But sense of humor.
Yeah,
okay? Right. I have a real sense of humor, and probably a dark one as well, about the universe. I just seem to be challenged, and even going way back when myself and my wife recreated our company and called it Courageous Leaders. The first thing that we said was, we're just putting a challenge out there, and we've had challenges along the way, So I've always had this sense of humor and the laugh at the universe. Well, okay, so you just added another piece. You just added another piece. So change for me is great.
So my thing on that is, and the thing that's true in my life is most of the time when I come across a challenge, even when I've had COVID, which has now been twice, and big things have happened that have really changed. It really challenged me personally, emotionally, whatever. I've got this question. I have to work within myself when it's happening to just allow it, because ultimately what often happens is that what I have to process as a consequence of that challenge ends up being a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've got this thing about how do we know that the change is bad? Like, how do we know that what happened is not ultimately for our good?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds a bit airy-fairy, but I think, it sounds like overly positive, like American style.
Yeah, you're trying to put a positive spin on it.
It's just my concrete experience is over time, most of these things, and so let me talk personally, because Kevin's always trying to say, stop, talk about your own experience. So when my wife and I separated, my wall, for a while there, my world fell apart. That it felt like, and it wasn't when it happened. It was actually the time leading up to it that was the hardest, because it was impending, which is almost worse.
Well, it is actually. Yeah, the anticipation of something is generally worse than the actual event.
So for any of it, the one listening, you could substitute in there any event that's changed your world, right? Any big event that's changed your world, but even the small things.
Yeah.
And in navigating that, what I have noticed and what has actually happened is that a number of things that were negative have resolved.
Yeah.
Our relationship is not the same as it was. We're not together anymore, but a number of things are actually better. And a number of things that were negatives have gone away.
Yeah.
Now, the consequence of that is a whole lot of things you navigate with the kids and life and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know if, and I think this is the important thing to really look within around change is your perception true? Is change always bad? Or is it often asking us to teach or to learn something or to change something in our worlds that's going to make us, to help us grow?
Yeah. Yeah, and that happened for me too 18 months ago as well, when my wife passed away.
Yeah.
I've initially was, I don't want to do this positive spin on it. I'm learning good lessons.
Yeah, I'm going to feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
go
through it.
And I'm going to be pumped up about it. And that doesn't happen. There's a whole lot of other parts to the grief and so on. over time, that's what's come out for me. There are lessons in there, and yes, it's sometimes change is imposed, and you don't want it, and there's massive consequences in most cases, and you choose not to have it. But if it happens, because you don't have a choice, you then start looking at what the lessons are coming out of that, and even excuse me, even the this COVID episode now is again what is the universe trying to help me understand, because there's something, and we've talked about,
we're still trying to get to the bottom.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I'm very impatient. I want to know everything now.
I think it's probably that.
It is. Well, it is. Well, we know it's that. But I'm obviously not learning it, because it keeps coming up.
It keeps testing you.
Yeah. And that through last week, the reflection, then, I drove 5 hours a day for 4 days, and then just crashed in a motel room, and, was totally on my own. I could talk to people on the phone, but that was about it. But it gave me that time to actually think more about not the change that was imposed, but the reasons why the change is imposed. So there's a silver lining in there. It's not a positive spin or anything like that, because it's hard work. I'm still recovering now, and I'm exhausted. Yeah. But I know that there is a bigger reason somewhere in the universe.
I think for me, as I start to really recognize the nature of my long-term growth and the nature of the change that I internally go through. So, that you call it becoming a better person, but as you are looking at yourself, as you're putting your own mirror up through life, and you're starting to make changes about who you want to be and who you are, which we do, and then we meet people who put the mirror up to us as well. Absolutely. But I think the most important thing is that we're able to put the mirror up to ourselves. And while we put the mirror up, the most important thing for me is that you can love yourself while doing that. And if you can find a way to put the mirror up and love yourself as you're not evaluating yourself, but just examining those parts of yourself, and allow it to happen with love, with self-love, that often takes away a lot of the angst of change, because you can just allow yourself to flow through it. And I think allow is that word. Yeah. And just accept that it's a part of life. And if you can do it with love and care for yourself, then it will continue to flow through life. It will just be a constant. You're not going to get away from it. So why not do it with love for ourselves and allow that change to occur?
And it does make it easier.
Completely.
Yeah, you can get to a little bit more of an understanding and reasoning, and even if you try and go logical about it, there's a logic to it, illogically, that we don't always get explained. But it's but just while you were talking, I was also thinking about there's a big age difference between you and I.
Yeah.
And time is a factor as well, So you talking about looking forward and that, and so am I, but I don't look forward with the same time gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually feeds into my impatience as well.
Yeah.
And never mind that it's always been there anyway. But it'd be interesting to hear
probably fear of death is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, no, but it's not even fear of death. It's fear of accomplishing things in the time that I have. And I just feel, and we don't know. We know how things work. We don't know what happens, and we don't know how much time we have anyway. But it just, if you think logically, 45, 63, and 80, 90, whatever it is, there's exponentially differences.
Well, so here's the thing that's interesting for me is that in whatever time each one of us have got left, we've just established that most of the time the universe is in control anyway.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we attempt with our minds to put a project plan over it, for want of a better term. So if we have less control than we think, why what is the purpose? So there's intention, which is this is who I want to be and this is how I want to live, and what do I want to achieve, which I think is, but we're not taking away aspiration.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. But if we have that control, for me, isn't there something about not resisting and allowing life to flow?
Oh, absolutely, and that's a challenge. It really is a challenge because just I guess the way that we live our lives and everything that's reported and so on, it's it talks about limits, the average age, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so we get fed all these ideas.
Exactly. So you've got to let that go. And one of the big things for me over the last 18 months, and I think I might have mentioned this already, is letting things go. Letting this, I do let it go, but it comes back.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, like, I've let it go. Let's tick that off. Okay, we can put that aside now. That's not how it works.
So I think most of the beliefs we have about things like time, what I should achieve, success, who I need to be in my life, come from often ideas that we pick up from the media, movies, our parents, our other people around us. And it's really important, I think, to examine those for yourself. Some of them can be true. You can adopt some of them as your own, but I think it's really important that every generation does its examinations of the beliefs before, which is, do I want to adopt this view of what success is, what life is, and for many of us, we still carry around aspects of that until the universe creates an event where it just fucking blows it all out of the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just go, I can't hold on to that belief anymore.
That's right.
And that's what I think I mean by back to the point, which is that a lot of it ultimately for me has been belief blowing, and has had to get me to look at life in a fresh way, in a more whole way, not in just a really sort of separate, small, specific way of something I wanted, or how I thought it needed to be. So I think we covered a fair bit of territory.
Yes, I think we have.
Any final reflections from you?
Just going all the way back to what you said right at the beginning about change. There's something that hasn't quite come up for me at the moment. That's it's not about the change. The change is the impact that it has on your life that gives you either the opportunity or the threat of going down not the wrong hole, but down the wrong path, in that choose not to embrace it. And cause yourself grief or whatever. You just don't choose to
resist it.
Yeah, you resist it. You don't choose to grow
Learn
with
from
it. Yeah. But having said that, though, it's sometimes that's the easier path anyway, because it hurts like hell. When you're facing up to all these things, and why me, all that sort of stuff, the stuff that really can drive you crazy, is not healthy for yourself, for myself, and anyone around.
So you're saying a bit of a healthy distraction sometimes is a good thing.
Well, it is, but those are distractions. They don't actually change the feelings, the emotions, and everything else that you've got to deal with, because it's not an easy ride, whatever's going on.
And I think the way I would express that is it's probably more the self-care aspects of knowing how much energy you've got for the change process at certain times,
and how to find that. When I came in today, is I'm still struggling this week. After last week, how am I building those energy levels back up? What am I actively having to do? In all sorts of ways, mentally and physically. And that takes more effort. But in my case, and my choice is that's what I want to do, because it is a change that was forced on me. I didn't have a choice in the matter, and neither did my family. And I'm choosing to grow through this somehow. But it's tiring. It is tiring.
So I think for me, the final wrap up is to think about a change. So I think 2024, this is where we're at. I I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but the one thing I probably know of is that change will continue through this year and next year and the year after. But we seem to be going through quite a dramatic period of it right now. So I think bring it all back to the lessons for you in your own heart. What is your intention around, as the year progresses, when things either happen in the world that are big changes, or they're things that happen that directly affect you in your own world? What's your intention about how you want to respond? And how do you want to grapple with that? And there is no right or wrong here. But I hope what we're doing is making you more conscious of how you work with it when it happens. So yeah, enjoy the day. Leave us a comment about what particular part of this you resonated with, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Till next time.
Okay.